Hi, this is Congressman Tom Cole from the 4th District of Oklahoma. This is another one of our congressional chats. Been a big week, particularly in the Appropriations Committee here in Washington, D.C. Let's talk about the floor very quickly. Both the chambers have now passed and sent to the President a major housing bill. It's really quite an achievement. My friend, the chairman of the Financial Services Committee, where this legislation comes from, French Hill from Arkansas, right next door to us, and particularly Mike Flood, who's from Nebraska, also a very good friend of mine. He's the subcommittee chairman that moved this legislation. Really accomplished a pretty remarkable feat. United States Senate, which quite often is the graveyard of all good ideas, actually acted together in a bipartisan way. So the major bills, this housing bill, which will help bring down the price of starting homes, which will unsnarl a lot of the regulations that get in the way of home construction. And a shortage of houses is one of the big reasons why the prices are so high inside the country. We need to get that industry going again. It's got a lot of talented people. It's really government that's gotten in the way. It's not the home builders, let alone the folks that are working hard to actually build these houses. But we make them go through so much paperwork at both the local and the state level, even before it gets here, that it's really created a tremendous crisis. So Congress has actually done something here that's pretty major. Now it's temporarily caught up in a kerfuffle over an unrelated piece of legislation. So the bill hasn't been signed into law. I think the president's trying to use it for a little bit of leverage here. But in the end, it's going to be signed into law, in my opinion, and it'll be a major bipartisan achievement of this Congress, and one that we can be very happy of. That legislation, by the way, moves through Financial Services Committee, where we are very ably represented in Oklahoma by Frank Lucas. And Frank is actually the longest serving member, certainly Republican member, I think member, period, on that committee. He's been on it since he arrived in Congress in 1994 in a special election. So his fingerprints are on that too, and that's a good thing for Oklahoma. So that's the biggest piece of legislation we dealt with this week. And dealt with, I think, in a congressional sense so far, successfully. The Appropriations Committee has been the best of times and the worst of times. Let's talk about the best first. There's 12 basic bills that fund the federal government. All 12 of them are now out of committee. We've been moving at record pace. We've had 11 of them. This week we dealt with defense, which is the largest single one. It's almost half the total discretionary spending of the United States. Hugely important in Oklahoma, certainly in my district with Tinker Air Force Base, Fort Sill Army Post, substantial National Guard presence. All those things are funded in this piece of legislation. Then throw in Altus Air Force Base and Vance Air Force Base and Enid and the McAllister Ammunition Depot, all the various contractors based in Oklahoma, Boeing, Pratt and Whitney. These are not based there, but they have major facilities there that employ thousands of Oklahoma. Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, all of them depend on the basic funding. So getting the defense bill out of committee, very important thing. So again, we're really doing the job in the House. We've passed all 12 out of committee. The Senate so far hasn't passed any out of committee, not a single one. And that the tale there is actually should not be laid at or the complaint should not be laid at the feet of my good friend, the chairman of the Senate committee, Susan Collins from Maine, but at the Democrats. They simply are being obstructionists. We've had the two longest shutdowns in American history in the last year. A complete shutdown late last year that went on longer than any other shutdown, and then another partial shutdown this year of ICE and the whole Department of Homeland Security. Our friend Mark Wayne Mullen went there at the president's request to try and unsnarl all that, and we eventually got the funding done, but it was hard, and we had to resort to an unusual tool, reconciliation. It should only be used once a fiscal year and should honestly never be used for appropriations, but that's how intransigent the Democrats have been. They are deliberately trying to provoke shutdowns, defund parts of the government, And they think they're never going to be held accountable for it. And frankly, so far they haven't been. The media lets them go away and acts like it's the Senate in general. It's not the Senate in general. It's Democrats in the Senate shutting down the government or parts of the government because they think it helps them politically. It's that simple. And in the case of the Senate, it's also because my friend Susan Collins is in a tough political race, and control of the Senate is very much in doubt going into this election. Same thing's true in the House, by the way. But Democrats don't want to give her a victory. They don't want her to get anything done. And so they're punishing the American people to score political points broadly against President Trump and specifically against Senator Collins. And it's just unconscionable. And again, I don't think it's gotten the media coverage it deserves. Quite frankly, people act like this is business as usual. It's not. Susan Collins, one of the most respected United States senators. She's the only Republican federal official in all of New England. All of New England. Every other member, there is a Democrat in multiple states. All the senators, she's the one. So it's very personal. Chuck Schumer, the Senate Democratic leader, has made it obvious it's personal. They're just trying to beat Susan Collins. And if people in the rest of America have to suffer, so be it, as far as they're concerned. So we ought to be looking at that. But again, at the committee level, the House has been the bright story. I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of the committee that I'm fortunate to lead. Again, to get all this work done before July 4th break, which was our goal from the beginning. We had a plan that worked. That doesn't happen very often in Washington, D.C., so I'm pretty proud of my subcommittee chairman and the job that they've done. Very proud, too, of my fellow Oklahoman, Stephanie Bice, who's the vice chairman of one of the most important subcommittees we have, Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development. Just done a splendid job on our committee, and I could not be more pleased with her leadership. She is an incredibly rising star here in Congress. So again, we got a great delegation. They're in good spots, and we're going to have a new one from Congressional District 1. I had the opportunity to meet him this week. I'm very impressed with him, and he's still got to win a general election, and you don't take those for granted, but he's a Republican nominee. He's very likely to win that general election, and I think will be a great addition up here for our state, and certainly for the 1st District of Oklahoma. So again, good days in committee. We did have a hiccup here on the floor. We were supposed to have 2 appropriation bills on the floor this week, 2 very important ones. One is called National Security and Related Programs. It funds the State Department. It's by my good friend, my vice chairman of the full committee, Mario Diaz-Balart from Florida. That bill would have cut spending at the State Department for the 3rd year in a row. Mario and his team over there have pulled that off. Very proud of them. Then we would have had energy and water. This is an enormously important bill. When you say energy and water in Oklahoma, people know it matters because those are 2 big things in our portfolio. But Chuck Fleischman from Tennessee does that bill, and it's not just domestic spending, where he actually cut spending again for the 2nd year in a row on domestic, but it also maintains the entire nuclear arsenal of the United States. It's in civilian hands in energy and water. He's got some of the most important nuclear research facilities in the country, Oak Ridge Laboratories, legendary in the development of nuclear power and nuclear weapons over the years. And Chuck did a great job. And so these bills have come through committee. They were supposed to go on the floor. And then we had a number of our members in my caucus that decided to throw a temper tantrum. And they want to get a very important and good piece of legislation through the Senate. That's the so-called Save America Act. It's very popular amongst the American people. It's just, you got to show identity and prove you're an American citizen to vote. And by the way, you show identity when you cash a check, to get on an airplane. I mean, you got to show an ID to get into the Obama Presidential Museum. I mean, it's pretty normal, but you don't have to do it to vote. So this, in federal elections, we would not touch state elections. That's state purview. Would require it's passed the House multiple times, but Senate Democrats just simply don't want to do it, and they keep holding it up over there. We have majority support for this legislation. The problem is the Senate filibuster again, which the Democrats have repeatedly misused. And I must say, the Republicans allow them to do it because they allow that law to, or that rule, not a law, it's not part of the Constitution, to stay in place. And that's frustrating to our members because we're passing something we think is important. We know all the polling shows every part of American society, every racial group, every ethnic group, both parties overwhelmingly favor requiring somebody to show ID to vote. And certain, a lot of states do it now. Oklahoma does. And so it's not onerous. It just, Democrats just do not want to do it, even though it's popular. And so that frustrates our member. But I will tell you, the shutting down our chamber because you don't like what's going on in the Senate is really cutting, again, cutting off your nose to spite your face. It's just silly. And that little temper tantrum over here by a few of our members kept us from moving two important appropriations bills across the floor and tee them up to go into negotiation with the Senate. It's a way, my committee worked very hard to get those bills written, multiple hearings, long markups. These are the product of real deliberation, and to have somebody shut down the House when they're getting ready to vote on appropriations bills because they don't like what's happening in the Senate. They weren't against what we were doing. They just decided, well, we'll just shut down to show them how upset we are. If you think anybody in the United States Senate cares about what's happening in the House, let alone when we're sort of taking the attention off where it belongs. It belongs in the Senate. That's where the problem is. Don't create needless problems over here and thwart the majority. The president, by the way, spoke out pretty strongly about this yesterday. He released a very strong statement reminding Republicans in the House, do your job. Operate by the procedures and the rules of the House, keep it open, and keep the pressure on the Senate by passing good legislation. That's the best thing we can do. So I hope we've learned our lesson over here, although count me as skeptical that we have, because I see members do this all the time. In a big majority, it wouldn't matter. 2 or 3 people want to go off and do something like this, it doesn't matter. We are a very small majority. We lose 3 people, and we've got some people that noses out of joint. They lost a primary, or whatever. They're not playing on the team. That hurts. And in the end, no matter what anybody thinks, politics is a team sport. Nobody up here can do anything by themselves. The only power I have as a member of Congress is I can hire and fire my staff. Everything else takes 218 votes to get done. And I better find 217 friends to get it done. So it is like a team. And if the team is dysfunctional, you don't move legislation. Again, when we have a normal size majority, it doesn't matter. 2 or 3 people can flake off. They can do what they want. But literally, we have to take attendance every Monday, our whip team, see who's here. And just stop and think about that. We've had to operate this way for 18 months, but somebody has a family crisis, you have a funeral, you have a disaster in your district, you're going through a personal family ordeal, whatever it is, we lose 2 or 3 members, we're in trouble. Or members have got primary races, we're in that season. They're going home, they've got to get in front of their voters. I get that. But we lose 2 or 3 people and there's not an offset on the other side. We lose control of the floor. We can't move any legislation. So very tricky up here, and it's tough enough under normal circumstances. It's, I think, political malpractice when you do it yourself, when some of your members decide they know better than everybody else. They know better than the president, they know better than the speaker, they know better than all their colleagues. You should always look at those kind of characters with a great deal of skepticism, because they're not going to get anything done for you. They can't work as part of a team. They can't be successful. They're grandstanding and elevating their individual concerns about what's best for the American people, and certainly what's best for the caucus, the Republican conference that they're part of. Sorry for that little temper tantrum of my own. But you need to know when things aren't working, Sometimes it's because the Democrats are being incredibly unreasonable, and that's normally the case in the United States Senate. In particular, we have just enough numbers here to overcome that. But sometimes it's your own people being ridiculous and being self-centered and selfish. And shutting down the floor of the House of Representatives when you're in control is incredibly self-centered and selfish. And it's elevating your concerns above important things like housing, appropriations, defending the United States of America. That's what people sent us here to do, not to grandstand and get on television and get Twitter followers or what have you. So we saw a little bit of that on both sides. We saw a lot of it in the United States Senate. We're going to continue to see it. My hope is we don't see much more of this in the House because, again, I think the President and the Speaker have made it abundantly clear it's not the right way to advance the Republican agenda, and it's not the right way to present yourself to the American people going into a very important midterm election. So with that, again, I'm excited we got all our bills out. I'm excited that the House moved this housing bill, and the Senate has moved it, and we've come to a deal there, and that will happen. We've got to continue to work on these funding issues. We're going to continue to push them in the House. We've got to continue to find bipartisan legislation. I think Farm Bill is probably next up. We've passed it in the House. Very important in a rural state like Oklahoma. The Senate's working on it, and so hopefully we can get that done here before the August break, or certainly before the November elections. That would be good. But again, lots of things going on, and we'll talk about some of these, everything from Iran to you name it in future. But again, pretty good week in the Appropriations Committee internally. Frustrating week for my fellow appropriators and myself because we had two bills ready to go across the floor, and our own team kept us from putting up there. Not our team, a couple of members of our own team that didn't get the memo, keep the government open. And then finally, a great deal of frustration with the United States Senate because, again, we see time after time where the minority deliberately obstruct the majority. That's what Democrats have been doing in the United States Senate. And I would argue we let them do it, and that's on us. I would argue we should look at the Senate procedures that empower the minority because they're obstructing the president's agenda, and they're certainly making it very difficult to legislate in the House. But with that, we're just going to keep working. We're going to get good things done for Oklahoma. I'm proud of what's in these bills. We have a lot of winners in our state, from Tinker Air Force Base and Fort Sill to the University of Oklahoma to a lot of our smaller communities. I was in Walters recently at the dedication of a new electrical power substation that they got through federal largesse from the last appropriations bill, and it's a big boost to them. So we try to work with our communities and see that when we move major bills that are good for America, there's also specific things inside those bills that are good for Oklahoma. We're going to continue that fight. So anyway, I hope things are well with you and your family. We're headed into the 4th, and may get to do this one more time, but I wish you a very happy 4th of July, you and your family. I hope you have time to celebrate. There's only going to be one 250th anniversary of the United States of America, and I would just ask you to do two things. Remember how blessed we all are, to live in the greatest country in the history of the world, and how indebted we all are to the men and women that are on guard all over the world to protect us and secure us, and make sure that we can celebrate while they're far away from home and their families, and make sure we can honor. So, when you're at the 4th of July, enjoy the occasion, celebrate the country, but remember the men and women that are on duty to protect us overseas and right here at home, where our security forces are on high alert to make sure we don't have a terrorist incident, where your local police are looking after your neighborhood and your community, and just thank them. Thank them for allowing all of us to live in peace, security, and freedom. So with that, goodbye for now. Good luck. God bless you and your family. Look forward to visiting with you again soon.